Benny, here we are once again, my brother. We're
Yep.
still standing by for our guest, the CEO of Police and Fire Publishing, Pete Bollinger. He's probably stuck in traffic being from the LA area. Pero hey, brother, bienvenido. I'm really excited about today's show. ¿Cómo estamos, Benny? How are we doing?
We're doing good. I mean, it's a great day. It's a good day.
Is it a beautiful day? Finally, is the sun coming out over there in Temecula or in
Oh,
Murrieta?
oh heck no! It's raining. It's cloudy and it's breezy.
Still, huh?
Yeah, it's one storm after another.
Yeah. Well, Benny, I'm really excited about today's show. I read a lot. I read a lot of books. I have my favorite authors. I'm not going to name them, but one of them is Joseph Wambach, one of many. But I'll tell you, there's one book that I read, and it's actually this one. And today's episode is actually on this Alpha Guard. And I don't know if you could see it because of the lighting, but I'll tell you, this is probably one of the best books I have ever read regarding the origin of the Mexican Mafia, Nuestra Familia, Aryan Brotherhood, and the Black Guerrilla family. Back in 1984, when I got hired by the California Department of Corrections, it looks like Pete's in. Hey, Pete, what's going on?
I am so sorry. I read the text at 6:35.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I meant 5:35.
Okay.
5:35 because it's 9:35 my time over here.
Yeah.
So I get a little sorry about that. Hey, but welcome to the show, brother. We're talking a little.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to finally see you guys. I'm so sorry. I rushed to as soon as I got the text, as soon as I saw it, I rushed to the computer monitor. So here I am. Hello.
All right, there we go. All right, I think we're back on again.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Well, David, let me do the introduction for Pete.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know what? Let me just say this real quick. Back in '84, when I got hired with the California Department of Corrections, I got a chance to debrief, work, and interview a lot of prison gang members. And throughout my career, when I came onto the San Diego PD, I got a chance to work some cases, Mexican Mafia cases. I helped with the Ayala case, with informants for Carlos Chacon and etc. But throughout my career, I've always heard about the Mexican Mafia, Nuestra Familia, Aryan Brotherhood, Black Guerrilla family, Texas Syndicate, the major prison gangs. But Benny and Pete, I had never known the story of Sergeant Bill Hankins. I had never heard of Sergeant Bill Hankins. And I believe that he died. You'll tell us more or less when he died. But I'll tell you, when I came on in '84, I wish throughout my career that I would have been able to have a beer with this man, have a scotch with that man, just to sit down and pick his brain. Because after reading this book, like I said, for every prison gang investigator, every historian, this is the book right here that they need to read, because I can't wait for the movie, because this is the real facts of the first prison gang investigator and the one that actually started the prison gang task force. And not only that, but he's the one that actually identified him for the California Department of Corrections. I'm going to stop talking. Benny, it's all yours.
Well, we want to know, who is Pete Bollinger. Pete Bollinger is an Air Force veteran who served our country from 1983 to 1987. Pete became a Santa Ana police officer in 1988, shortly after leaving the military, serving the Santa Ana community in Orange County, California for 25 years. Pete retired as a police sergeant in 2013. Pete has a master's degree and owns Police and Fire Publishing. Pete has published numerous books and produced several movies. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Oh, welcome. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Doing wonderful.
Great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, Pete, let's get started. Let me ask
Sure.
you something.
Sure.
What year was the book discovered? And can you take us through the discovery of the book?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about 10 years ago. Patel was for whatever reason, every I guess 6 months to a year, underneath the San Quentin prison is there's kind of like, I guess there's like a subway system for people. I mean, there's hallways and there's there's storage places, and it's just an incredible thing. So it's kind of I guess something they do for training and also just for security and everything. They send their special services unit down to check it out. So they're it's like from what I've never been down there, but it's been described to me as like a catacomb. Just hallways going everywhere, really dark and eerie and kind of creepy. Very limited electricity. So they're on their flashlights. Some parts are really low, so they're hunched over or hunched to be able to fit in the small places. And it's a daunting task. And
Hey, Pete,
yes.
let me just chime in. What I've read and what I've heard, that they're like dungeons, right? But I mean, it's like a
Yes.
catacomb underneath, and I believe it's underneath the administration building, and you have to have a special key to get in. And what I've read and what I've heard, it had been years since somebody had actually went in there to look to see what was really in there. And that's when Eric Patel, whom I believe now is a captain at St. Quentin, went in maybe with a security squad, like you said. And so they walk into these, let's call them catacombs, let's call them dungeons, but sacred ground. Nobody goes there. And what happens? What happens?
Well, what you described, I guess, is that old style key that you're talking about. They got that from the the lieutenant or watch commander on board. They go down into this cellar, and he runs into this room, and I guess it's like a big bank kind of vault. They push the door open, the old creak going on, just like a horror movie, and they enter this, and there's boxes and boxes everywhere. And so, of course, Eric, being the curious guy he is and the historian he is, he gets the boxes and they bring him upstairs, and he starts going through these boxes, and in these boxes are records of chronos, records, discipline, everything you can imagine on inmates from the late 1940s, 50s, and early 60s, and the who's who of San Quentin. I mean, all the old Mexican mafia guys, all the old Nuestra Familia guys, all the old Black Guerrilla family, BGF, all the Aryan Brotherhood, just names of famous inmates. And he started realizing this, and then there was the files that the person who created these files and these boxes of volumes of all this work was a man named Sergeant William Hankins. And his curiosity went through the roof, and he started asking the old timers there, "Hey, who is this Sergeant William Hankins?" And a couple old timers go, "Oh, you mean Bill Hankins?" And he goes, "Oh, William, Bill, okay, Bill Hankins." And he goes, "Yeah." They go, he was this he was a very diligent, incredible prison guard who believed that there was a Mexican mafia before there was a Mexican mafia. He believed that there was a Nuestra Familia before we realized it. He was at the inception. To go back a little bit, he was actually when he got these records, it was like I said, it was incredulous to see the names on there. The founders, of the BGF, the founders of the NF, high-ranking members of the Mexican mafia, including Mundo Mendoza, which I understand you're going to interview soon about this.
Next week regarding this.
Yes. I'm going to watch. I'll tell you that.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
And so when he discovered this, he started like the two old timers that told him, "Oh, yeah, this guy's one of the elite prison guards." And Eric goes, "Wow!" And there were photographs and just everything that a historian of this world, as you two are, would want to put together. And at this point, he started asking more questions about Bill Hankins. And one of the guys, I think I have a connection or some a degree of separation to his family. Maybe I can call them and see if I can get you their number. So this other prison guard, an older man, reached out to the Hankins family, and they said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, we would love to talk to him." So Eric Patel goes to the family, and he starts telling them about how amazing their father was, or their grandfather in some cases, but the father to this Pam Hankins, who he was talking to, how amazing he was to put together what he did and the information that he's given them, and what it means to law enforcement and historians of this underworld. And she goes, "Well, we have a lot more. It's in the garage. We didn't have the heart to throw his stuff away. He passed away a few years ago. And we have a whole wall of this memorabilia, so to speak, of prison memorabilia." So she takes him out there, and there's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of records, and everything. And there's a manuscript in those boxes. And he pulls out the manuscript, and she goes, "Oh, that's the book that he never had an opportunity to publish." And I'm like, I'm hearing the story from Eric, and this is incredible. So he introduced Pam Hankins to us, and we're a company that believes in history and historical accuracy, and we want to put this stuff out because for the rest of the law enforcement community to have this knowledge that Eric discovered. And it was just one of those golden treasure type moments that happens once in a generation. And that's where this book came from. That's how it happened.
Go ahead, Benny.
So what inspired you to write or edit Hankins' notes? I understand he had a typewritten storybook and with a bunch of notes. Who assisted you in the research for publishing this book?
Yeah, actually, there was a multitude of people, that we talked to and verified information from. I didn't write it. I want to be clear on that. It was Mr. Hankins' words, and yes, we edited it and made it more readable, and corrected some grammatical mistakes, that kind of stuff. But the book itself is Bill Hankins' book, and we reached out to our regular resources, Richard Valdemar, of course, Eric Patel, Mr. Mendoza, and a lot of others that had access to him, knew the gangs, and then our own historical documents where we could verify certain things that occurred in the book, that they were actual and real. And once we validated everything we could, then we put it out. That's kind of how the process went.
I understand that all this occurred at San Quentin State Prison, correct?
Yes.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Pete, I was reading some historical facts about San Quentin State Prison. First of all, it's the oldest prison in the state of California. It was actually built, or open, not built, but open in 1854. So, I could just imagine in my mind how, those dungeons looked, and we're going to call them dungeons, catacombs. Mm-hmm. And that Eric Patel had a special key just to go in, get the warden's permission, the watch commander's permission. What prompted Eric to do that? Do we know? We tried to get him on our show, but I understand he's a captain now. He's very, very busy. But what prompted him? Have you ever talked to him about it? If it was 10 years ago, it was 2013 when all this happened. this book, I mean, this book starts off in 1957, 54, 1960. He starts his story there, or even
Right.
before that. Actually, he starts, I think, believe after 1945, he starts there when
Yes.
you read the book. Uh, what prompted, had he heard prior to going in there of Sergeant Bill Hankins? Had you heard of Sergeant Bill Hankins? Had any prison gang investigators ever hear of Sergeant Bill Hankins being the one that basically identified the Mexican mafia and the prison gangs?
David, I'm so glad you brought that question up because there's a lot of legends in law enforcement, which I consider you two a part of that. And what happens is, uh, after a generation, you're gone, right? Your name is gone, and you're not thought of anymore, and you're kind of old news and forgotten. You remember it, and your buddies remember it when you get together for once in a while. But the next generation has no idea what you did. And I think that with Bill Hankins, it was kind of phasing out. The credit that he deserved was not coming to him, and people were going on with their lives and professional lives, and that's just what happens. So the San Quentin underneath is, I understand they do that periodically. I don't know how often, but they just go down there and do a sweep for whatever reason. Like I said, security or just a little training, something to do. But they periodically do that. So I think that was the reason. It was just one of those times, and Eric happened to have joined the unit, and the next thing is he was with the team that did that. The curiosity was his own, though, to grab those files and go to the next level with it, which turned out to be a treasure trove, just incredible. So that to answer that, and it did start in 1945 because Bill Hankins was a World War II veteran.
Yes, he was.
The way he was described to me, he was tall, strong, steely blue eyes that he was looking at you across the prison yard. And I think Mendoza will talk about some things like that next week. But he was one of those guys. I mean, in those days, I guess the inmates and officers went at it physically. And if you called somebody out, you would go fisticuffs. And apparently, it really righteously happened with Bill Hankins, where he'd go take off his gear, his shirt, go back behind the Quonset hut, and go toe to toe with the inmate. And sometimes he described it as sometimes he won, sometimes he lost, but there was always respect after. So if you can imagine that, I haven't seen that in my career, but you do hear stories, and that was definitely something that did happen with Bill Hankins, and a lot of stories like that where, he was a man's man. I mean, the guy described by the family too, Pam and her siblings. This guy was just a man's man. There's no nonsense. He became a prison guard after the war to make support his family, make a living, and he was one of those guys that whatever he decided to do, he was going to be the best, and he ended up being the best. But in being the best, when you're the best at something, or when you go for something and you're not status quo like most people are, you're always going to face scorn and ridicule. I know that you guys have had your share of that, because when you climb to the top, there's always people that are going to rip you down, or they call them haters now, but and he had his share. Like I said, they would, when he was putting together in the late 50s, when he was putting together the fact that there was a Mexican mafia, because when Wedo Buff started the Mexican mafia back then, it was, and even now so, but really back then you didn't talk about it. You guys know a lot about that, and so it wasn't really a legend, like American Me, the movie American Me made it. So people talked about it. It was just kept on the down low. So most of the guards didn't know or didn't care. Most of the officers just moved on and did their job. But Hankins, he had a curiosity to find out what was really going on. Why could so few inmates control so many inmates? And then, he developed informants, undercover informants that you'll read about in the book. And then he put together the fact that there was a Nuestra Familia that was amassing to counter the strength of the Mexican mafia. And he was at the center of where all this was happening. And then the BGF formed there during his tenure, and he was documenting that and figuring that out. And what he did was incredible. He kept telling the administration, you know what? We need to put these guys away, the shot callers, the biggies. We need the big homies. We need to put them away, and throw away the key. Well, for some time he was able to do that, and he kept the killings and the attacks and everything at bay. But eventually, the administration and all the ridicule that came upon Bill Hankins, because there's the guy, the conspiracy theorist, right? The Mexican mafia guy. You ever heard of such a foolish thing? Some of the guards and some of the administrators would treat him like that.
They ridicule him. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he kept going, though. He knew. And you guys know, I know from your guys' story, you've been in the situation before where but the people above you they don't get it. They're either not bright enough, or they can't understand how to put two and two together. But this guy knew. Bill Hankins knew. So Bill Hankins would just get information and put it together. Well, there was one incident he knew was coming from his informants and everything, and it was going to be a bloodbath, probably the biggest bloodbath in prison history. And some of the guards would get hurt. Some of the guards might get killed. He knew that. So he kept trying to convince the administrations to do a lockdown and a search of every cell. But they didn't want the cost, because you have to hold people over and cancel days off, and they didn't want the hassle. They thought he was overreacting. Well, he was so strong about it that they decided, you know what, maybe we better do this, because he's documented so many things. If it does happen, we're going to be in some big turmoil here. That's probably the only reason they did it. And
Pete, you're describing the shoe war, right? In 1968 or the late 60s?
Yeah, I'm going to let I'm kind of keeping, not giving everything up, but
okay. But I mean, that is historical,
right,
in the prison gangs history.
Folklore.
But yeah,
yes.
You're describing
and
huge.
And they did a sweep, and it was the biggest confiscation in prison history of weapons and blades and shanks and everything you could imagine. So they really, he kind of made his name for himself at that point. And that's when he started gaining the credibility, became the first institutional gang investigator in history. And his credibility soared through the roof, and he started teaching other prison officers. And it, it kind of took off, like, okay, there is some validity here. We do. And all the rest of every IGI, every institutional gang investigator owes him for their position. He is the man that made it happen. He is the person that established credibility, that information matters, and information saves lives, inmates' lives and officers' lives. It's people say, why don't you let them kill each other? Well, there is that argument, but with that argument, there's going to be prison officers that are hurt as well. And so it's better to just try to keep everybody safe. And so, and depending on we're supposed to keep, officers are supposed to keep people safe, no matter who they are. That's their oath. That's what they're supposed to do. And that's what Bill Hankins believed in. There's another great story in that book where a prisoner was raped, and Bill did not care one way or another about race. It happened to be a different race, and he took care of the problem the only way he could with physical force. I mean, sometimes when you're dealing with those kind of people, the only thing that works is force, and prisoners understand force and force respect, whatever you want to interchange it with, but they get it. So that was a really amazing story too. And there's just so many things in that book that any officer would love to read. Any historian should read, just to gain knowledge. But quite an incredible man, and would have been forgotten if not for this book. That's why we owe so much to Patel and the Hankins family. And nobody really there's not a lot of people that buy this book because it's historical, and I think they're making a mistake, because everybody that reads it's a wow factor. I know, David, you've read it several times, and
you know what, Pete? I've bought it for several correctional officers and for several police officers. I bought it for them because that's how much I believe in this book. And this is a true man of honor, and respect. Bill Hankins.
I agree. I mean, obviously, I didn't know him, never met him. He's been deceased for a long time. But I feel like I do after reading that book. I feel like, wow, what a John Wayne kind of character. But
yes,
but John Wayne wasn't real. I mean, he was a movie guy. This is the real guy.
Yeah.
And same with, you mentioned Clint Eastwood. Same kind of character. If Clint Eastwood was younger, he played him. But once again, these are actors. They're not real. We have the real thing. And anybody who knew him, I think, wow, you just ran into somebody that's special in life. Everybody's special, but some are more special than others, right? And he was that guy.
Let me follow up with one more question on the same subject matter. So now Eric Patel reaches out to you and he says, "Hey, I found this manuscript. You read it. I'm sure you read it before you met the family. Mm-hmm. Your heart was probably going 100 miles an hour like mine was when I first read the book. And all of a sudden you go and you meet the family. How was the family? How did they receive you? Do they realize that their father was a true American and law enforcement hero? Do they realize that?
I think they do now. I think, to them, he was just dad, right? And, like all of us are. And he was just, a strict kind of guy. And, but we told him, I mean, hey, your dad was something special. And, in our world, they have different jobs, and none of them are law enforcement. So they might not appreciate him as a professional as much as we do, because they're not one of us, right? But they do know after seeing the reception. We met him. We did a private book signing with their family and friends, which was at either, I think, Pam's brother's bar. He owns a bar up north, and then we did a conference where we launched the book, and they saw the family was there signing on behalf of Bill Hankins, signing the books. So they saw the reception and the treatment they were given from the administration, officials, which were there helping us, which was awesome. And the I can't remember which conference it was, or I'd give them a shout out, but it was a beautiful launch, and they treated the family with such respect. Let them line up at the table. They signed. They were happy. They were very touched by what the officers were saying and doing, and purchasing their father's book as well.
Well, Benny and I, we're going to be going to a conference in Northern California next month,
Mhm.
and you're going to be there. You're going to be selling
Yes,
this book and many other
absolutely.
books. And you know what I would love? I know where they live is close to where we're going to be staying. Hey,
Mhm.
if you could do me a favor, take me to go meet, if his wife is still alive, his daughter, his sons, I
Right.
would love to shake their hand and just tell them that, you know what, their father was a true American and law enforcement hero. Maybe you could grant that for
I
Benny and I. We would love to do that.
I will reach out, and yeah, the conference that we're going to, I'll reach out, and I'm really excited to see all you guys and to see the rest of the people, and it's going to be great. It's going to be
Yeah,
great. But I will reach out to Pam and see if she'd like to come down and have some dinner with us and talk about her father. I think that would be great for you.
that'd be outstanding.
Yeah.
Benny, it's your question. Now you're next.
But, I got the book. I purchased the book, and like David was saying, I couldn't put it down. It was such an interesting book. It really caught your attention, everything, especially when it's coming from a person who's actually writing it, who's actually doing this stuff,
Mhm.
Uh, one of the things I was going to ask you is, how did the family describe Hankins?
Yeah, they you know what, he was dad to them. He was a strict dad, and just but normal, a normal dad coming out of World War II. They were just all that way, and raised a nice family and had a great life and a great wife, and she's who's their mom's passed also. So, but yeah, he was just I got more of a description from Mundo Mendoza about what he was on the job than them, because they didn't know. You kind of like, I mean, think about it, like, our families and stuff. We drive away from home, and who knows who we are when we get to work, right? It's would they be able to describe us the way we are at work? I don't know.
Right.
um but yeah, as for home, he's just kind of a normal dad.
Hey, Pete, how would you describe? He was also, he was known as Big Hank, according to the book.
As
But
what?
Big Hank,
Oh yeah, he's a big man.
yeah. So
Yeah.
tell me, how would you describe his method of operation and the investigative technique within the CDC and the streets? Because he was also a member of SSU.
Yeah, I would say, just listening to people, reading the book, and interviewing people, that he was just a fair man. Like, um, wouldn't lie to people, tell them the truth. And that's why I think he got so many informants, because he was just straight up with people. If you on the yard, if you messed up, you would have to deal with them. If you didn't mess up, you would be treated with respect, and fairly. And so I think he just cultivated a world of somewhat honor around him, just by the way he was. And then he, the informants, as you'll read about, with the NF stuff, and one of the founders of the NF, he developed as an informant, and worked with him and his wife. Um, I think when you get a truly honest person, uh, good things happen around somebody that's pure and honest. And I think, without knowing him, I guess, if I had to describe him very succinctly, uh, it would be pure and honest. He wanted the purity. He wanted everybody to be safe, and he wasn't going to compromise. That he was just a good man.
Like David and I always talk about, and it's like a lot of seasoned detectives and cops will tell you this. You just got to know how to talk to people, and this guy obviously know how to talk to people, not only just regular people, but convicts.
Absolutely. Well, I think his lack of fear was probably maybe one of the biggest factors. As I said earlier, he did not mind using physical force. I mean, he dodged death in World War II. I mean, like so many of our proud Americans lost their lives over there, and he came back, um, physically unscathed, and he was strong, big, tall guy. Wasn't afraid of anybody, and they knew it. And I've never worked the the prison yard or anything, but I'm sure that inmates can smell even the smallest or detect even the smallest amounts of fear.
Right.
I don't think he had any.
He was definitely the Dirty Harry of the Department of Corrections.
He was scared of nothing. And, like I said, I can't wait to hear the details next week of your interview with Mundo, because that's a question I would want to hear is, would this guy go toe to toe with Mundo, who's a very big man, strong man? And, did he show any kind of that? And I would say no, but I can't wait to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah. For those that don't know, William Hankins was born July 14, 1926, and passed away February 5th of the year 2000.
Wow. 2000. Wow. One of my last questions, Pete,
Sure.
for you. What was or is your goal for every reader to get out of the book Alpha Guard? And also, what lessons can we learn from his relentless work ethic, his fearless attitude, and his devotion to the job? Threefold question.
Wow, I can't even maybe one at a time.
Yeah, let's go one at a time.
Getting
What
older
was your
now,
goal
Karen.
in printing this?
The goal of Police and Fire Publishing is always to put out quality stuff. We believe in the history of law enforcement, and we get a lot of different offers to publish this or publish that, and the financial aspect to us is really not that important. We just want to keep going, to keep educating police officers and prison officers, and the law enforcement community as a whole. We want to continue to educate them, and so that was really the goal of this book, is to put something amazing, incredible, the exploits of one person, and what can be accomplished if you just continue to move forward and be good at what you do. So that's the goal, is to put out an amazing product that'll live a long life.
And the second part, what lessons can we learn from his relentless work ethic? And I think you covered it, that the inmates weren't his enemies. It was actually administration that were not only, well, I don't want to call them enemies, but were the ones that criticized him, the ones he was swimming against the tide or swimming against the current with administration. What can we learn from him?
Wow, there's so much you can learn from this guy. He ultimately, like we said, became a sergeant. But he was at war with the administration, because, administrators, I always say in law enforcement, there's the occasional crossover where you got a real true cop who becomes an administrator, but it's very rare. Usually you when you're young, you decide to go on one of two paths, and one is to the administrative role, and one is to the true street warrior role or prison warrior role.
To become a gunslinger.
Right. And so
you're an administrator or you're a gunslinger.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go one of,
one or the
there
other.
are two, like Led Zeppelin said, there are two paths you can go on. But,
Yeah.
It's like, and he chose to go the warrior path.
Yeah.
And in doing so, and administrators, they, I don't know if you've ever had a true administrator on your show, but they think differently. And I'm not saying it's bad, but, they're nuts and bolts, they're costs and lawsuits, and they think much differently than a warrior. A warrior is they're going to get the job done one way or another, and the administrator thinks, how much is the job going to cost us? So, and a warrior, I always say a warrior has stories when he retires. An administrator doesn't, and a warrior is usually only friends with other warriors, and administrators are usually only friends with other administrators.
And a warrior is remembered when he's retired and not an administrator.
Another reason for writing this book. So, and that's why I said all warriors have stories, and some of them belong in a book, and to use for others. So with his war with the administration, he continued the fight. He never gave up. He was ridiculed by the administrators, because the Italian mafia had been in existence for so long, and they refused to believe there was a Mexican mafia. They thought it was a joke. And he said, not only is there Mexican mafia, there's other organized crime happening right in front of you, and we can stop it now. But if you let it go too long, and if you don't give me the resources to make this happen, it's going to grow like cancer. And sure enough, even though he tried to stop it and he was fighting the administration, he did what he could, but it still blossomed. And of course, it's too late now. It's out of control. Yeah. And so the lessons are, you're not going to solve everything that's wrong in your job and society and whatever, but you just do your best. And you know what? You're going to have enemies within, and one day they might have to account for what they caused.
And you never give up.
Never give up, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the third one?
The third one was basically the same, his fearless attitude and his devotion to the job.
I've known a few people in my life, only a few, that had his character, work ethic. Most of us have lapsed during our career at one time or another. He didn't seem to do that. He was the real deal the entire time. And it makes you a special person. And
yes, it does.
That's why if not doing a book on this man would have been a travesty. It was meant, I believe in God, and I think that there was a divine intervention for that to happen, for this book to be made. That's another reason. So there was too many things that happened that brought this to us for us not to publish it.
Yes. And Benny, your last question. Benny, turn on your mic.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank Pete for bringing this book out. It's so important. And I'm telling you, if you buy this book and you read it, and I'm not trying to sell books, but I'm just telling you, if you get this book, you're not gonna want to put it down, especially if you are somebody who works with the Department of Corrections or work in a custody setting or anywhere, even if you work the streets. This is a really, really good book. Good reading. Thank you, Pete.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I know that you guys had asked if it's going to be a movie. I would love it to be a movie, but a lot of times what happens when you have to get permission from too many people, like siblings, children, it's just not worth it, because you're really probably not going to make money on it. You're going to probably lose money, and you were just going to do it just for the legacy piece or, to educate officers once again. But if you have to appease too many people, and people have this idea that they're going to be millionaires after a low budget movie, that you have to, you just not able to do it. So probably never going to happen. I wish it would, but yeah, it's a tough business. We're not in this. Police and Fire Publishing is not selling books for financial gain. Put it that way. We are struggling to put great products out to educate officers, and we'll continue because that's what we do. So yeah. Yes, sir.
Hey, Pete. Hey, brother. Thank you once again, man, for being on our show. This is your show. Whenever you come on, you don't need an invitation. Let us know. We look forward to hanging out with you and
Absolutely.
Fellowshipping up in Northern California in April. And brother, once again, thank you for all you do. You do great. Those books, those movies that you do are outstanding.
Thank you.
On behalf of our show, thank you very much, brother. Thank you, and God bless you, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Man, Benny, I'll tell you, I am so excited about next week having Mundo Mendoza, whom actually knew Sergeant Bill Hankins, who's actually going to be talking about his experiences physical experiences, touching the man, talking to the man. I mean, things that nobody has ever come out to say that they did, that experience that he has. And next week, Mundo's going to be with us once again. And it's going to be an awesome interview. I'm looking forward to it. Anything else? I mean, this is one of those books that it's not only for police officers, correctional officers, it's also for all those that love that genre of Mexican mafia, Nuestra Familia, prison gangs, because this basically shows you the beginning and what one man, all the struggles that he had to go through to basically expose them to the world where we're at today. Anything else, Benny?
I'm just excited about having Mundo next week. And David, you and I know him well, but man, it is so tough to get this guy to come on. He's so busy. I mean, he's all over the place, and it's just going to be an honor again to have him on our show and for him to be able to talk about the book and talk about, Hankins.
Yeah, it's going to be outstanding, brother. It's going to be outstanding. Brother, any last words? I'm looking forward to next Wednesday, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Watch us live and ask your questions because, like I said, this is the first time Mundo has ever talked about this book and his personal experience with Sergeant Bill Hankins. Any last words, Benny?
Just for those on the front lines, remember to prepare for the fight of your life. Fight dirty, get tough, get mean, train, know the job. Increase your capacity to resilience. Don't hesitate. Stay in the fight and survive the fight.
Exactly. And Benny, once again, and those that will see you next week, God willing, and remember, live a purpose-driven life. Live every day like it's the last day on earth and never give up. And remember, our ending is going to be greater than our beginning. We'll see you next week. God bless you. And thank you very much.